Hey y'all, it's me, your host Lydia T. Blanco, and as always, I'm so hyped that you are here. Here we practice vulnerability, showing up for ourselves, and really being in community with one another along our journeys. So welcome. If this is not your first time tuning in, welcome back, y'all. Now, I love having you here while indulging in a burrito from one of the best burrito shops on the West Coast with my sister. I'm halfway through a bite, my first bite. And that first bite was so good that it triggered this thought about flexibility and discipline, power, and so many other things. And so I immediately put my burrito down and I began to take notes because I was like, you know what? There is something that I need to talk about that's been on my mind, but I'm not sure how to introduce it. I don't know what to name it, but I began to write these notes down. And what came to me was the idea of what comes with say, right? And so you're probably like, what do you mean? You know how some of us don't feel like we have much say over things? I believe that there is so much that comes with the say that so many of us desire, right? And when I begin to think of those things, I think about responsibility and so many other things really that come with say. Some of the things that I wrote down were alone time, seasons of separation, freedom, flexibility, a number of tough moments, right? When you have to figure things out. And so I think it's exhilarating to think about all of this responsibility, independence, and a number of things that come with say. And I feel like I've been able to count the number of the things that I said a number of times, right? A number of things, a number of things. It's just me being tired. But stick with me, okay? Because there are some really challenging moments that we have to manage and work through when we assume the responsibility of actually having say over our lives. So, yes, this is the Get My Life tour. But do you know how much has come with this? There's so much. I've changed my cadence from being on weekly with you all to bi weekly because I have say. I also have a number of other responsibilities, deadlines, and just life be lifing, okay? Y'all know life be lifing. And I'm like, okay, well, Lydia, you have say, right? But with that comes discipline. If I change my cadence, I need to communicate that. A part of me was so tired from traveling between time zones and living my best life this weekend that I had to really push myself to host and produce this stop of the tour. But I'm like, you know what, Lydia, you have say. You also have a loyal group of listeners internationally, and you have to decide what it is that you want to do with that authority. You know, that's the second point I want to make. Deciding what it is that you want to do with your authority and how you want to use it is essential. It's one thing to want control and responsibility, a title, a certain lifestyle, but you really have to decide not only how you're going to acquire those things, right, but how you're going to maintain them and what it is that you're going to do when you have the responsibilities, the resources, the time. A lot of us like, if I just had more time, I would do X, Y, and Z. And then you get more time and you're scrolling. You get more time and you don't know what to do with yourself. You're not exercising. You're not getting fresh air. You're not budgeting your energy. You're idle, right? So it is extremely important to know what it is that you are going to do with the say that you have, right? Like I said, the time, the resources, the authority. You have to have a vision, a plan, right? So many things in order because typically when you have say, you have influence. And when you have influence, you have people who are looking to you to ultimately make a decision, a recommendation, and it's not even that if you don't get it right, things are going to go wrong, but there's just that much responsibility on you, right? The freedom, the flexibility, the decisiveness, the discipline that comes with say, sometimes I feel like it carries a lot of weight, right? It's heavy. Some people talk about the weight of responsibility and it's real, but you have to be mindful of what it is that you're asking for. And you're probably wondering, okay, yeah, you were eating a burrito and this thought came to you and you began to take notes, but where the heck did this come from, Lydia? I really began to think about my life and traveling in between coasts. So many things come to mind for me. I think about where it is I live, what industry I'm in, what does my workday looks like, the flexibility I have, how I've used my time. A lot of different ideas and thoughts begin to arise. And I'm like, man, and I'm like, whoa, Lydia, do you realize the amount of say that you have and what comes with that? The other part of that is realizing that you may not be as good at what you may think you are because of how you aren't using your time, because of how you aren't using, flexibility to your advantage. And so these things really began to, I began to grapple with a lot of these thoughts and realities and ideas. And so I was like, what comes with say? So just in case I lost you, we back, okay? And so that's where the idea came from. Just so many competing thoughts while eating this burrito. And I decided, you know what? I actually have to talk about this because a lot of people want to talk about influence and becoming your own boss, this, that, and the third. But a lot of people aren't talking about the responsibility that comes with that, right? How are you preparing yourself to become a gatekeeper? Questions that need answers, but real questions that I have to ask myself. I look forward to being a thriving entrepreneur, right? Who doesn't have to rely on a 9 to 5 or a contract to be not even successful, right? But to stay afloat and do well and live the life that I want to live and have the financial means to sustain that, right? But I know that I need all the more discipline. I need to be able to say, okay, this is how I'm going to self regulate. I had to check myself because that bad habit has come from a work style that did not serve me, right? And while I know that, I have to put it into practice, right? So with the say that I do have, I realize, you know what, Lydia, you're not using the flexibility, the time, resources the way that you could, right? So what is that going to look like in full-time entrepreneurship, right? If you don't like working for someone now, not even to say that I don't, right? But this is the general you. You may not like full-time entrepreneurship because it requires way more time and discipline and structure. And so, y'all, it's real out here, okay? I hope you're like listening and you're like, okay, what comes with say? Aside from business and career and all these things, I really think there are a lot of people who don't have say over their lives who think that, the structure that, their career or business or whatever may provide them with a peace of mind, right? But there is no real say because you're always asking for permission. I'm trying to get to a point where I don't have to ask. I don't have to request. I'm letting it be known, right? And me letting it be known makes provision for other people. But it goes back to this idea of self-discipline. Not even idea, the reality, okay? And being mature enough to hold yourself accountable, but also set boundaries. That right there, this makes me think of Nene Leakes when she said, I said what I said, okay? She probably didn't say that, okay, that was me. But she said, I said what I said. We have to be that matter of fact about who we are, where it is that we want to be, what it is that we want, and that confident in our say in every area of our lives. It's not about checking anybody else. For me, I believe it's about checking ourselves, right? And showing up with that kind of energy in the most positive fashion possible, right? Not only to affirm yourself, but to let people know, okay, she said what she said, he said what he said, they said what they said. You know what I'm saying? Okay? We got to get through those tough moments. We got to have that excitement and lightness in our lives and be able to make room for ourselves. But no, you have to be mindful of what it is that you're asking for, right? And be willing to bear the responsibility of actually having say over your life. That right there. But we have to make sure that we get other things in order, right? Because freedom requires discipline. Look, I didn't anticipate this being a very long stop on the tour. I don't know what the minute marker is, but I really want to share my mic drop moment. Okay, so here it is. When I think about say, I think about boundaries. And boundaries are blessings we get to help orchestrate to protect ourselves. So as you think about the say that you want to have and the say that you do have over your life, continue to set those boundaries, protect yourself, be a person of your word, and go confidently. Look, I hope this has spoken to you. Remember, you are a co creator, okay? But it has been real. Until the next time, I will see you right back here, center stage. Peace.